Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. In today's video, I'm going to be picking some jalapenos, pickling them, and putting them through the canning process. I have two varieties of jalapenos I'm growing this year. The one is called Jalapeno Early, and the other is ones I had saved from my own seed that started off as a type known as Jedi. Now, the Jedi ones I've been growing for, I don't know, whatever it is, 3 or 4 years now. And those have really just gotten spicier as each season has gone by, and they really make some great pickled jalapenos and work great in salsa. Here's what I picked for today. This will be enough to do a couple jars and some salsa. To make the pickled jalapenos, you're going to need some apple cider vinegar, white vinegar, water, some pickling salt or kosher salt. Now I add some pickle crisp in here and some garlic. For each pint that you want to make, you'll need about 12 to 14 ounces of jalapenos, then 1 part water, 1 part apple cider vinegar, and 2 parts white vinegar. 1 tablespoon of sugar, and a ½ teaspoon of salt. Today I'm making 3 pints, so I'm going to just triple all those values, except for my garlic. My garlic cloves here, the one is really big, so I'm just going to use one of these big ones and then cut it in half. I have my jars in here sanitizing, so once this comes up to a boil, I'll let it boil for like 10 minutes to sanitize the jars. Then all I have to do is keep them warm until the jalapenos are ready to go into them. I'm also going to add a splash of white vinegar in here. And what that does is it helps prevent the jars from getting cloudy due to the hard water we have. Once you've peeled your garlic, you don't need to dice it up or anything, just do some rough slices on it. Then put those off to the side. We'll use these once we actually put the jalapenos in the pickling solution. I'm going to prepare my pickling solution. Well, since I'm doing 3 pints, I'm going to add 2 full cups of white vinegar, plus 1/2 cup. And I'll do 1 full cup of apple cider vinegar, plus another 1/4 cup. And then last is 1 cup of water, plus 1/4 cup. You want to use 1 teaspoon of salt per jar and 1 tablespoon of sugar per jar. You want to just give this a little stir to dissolve all that sugar and salt in there, and let this come up to a boil. And while you're waiting for this, you can go ahead and start cutting up the jalapenos. For the jalapenos themselves, I recommend wearing some food grade gloves. These jalapenos are hot, and when you're cutting a lot of them, you know, that juice can get on your hands, and then inevitably you end up touching your face or someplace else, and that will burn. So the gloves will avoid that. And I washed all my peppers first, and all I have to do now is just cut them into rounds. It's helpful to make sure you sharpen your knife before you start doing this, so it'll just make the cutting process much easier. Once all your jalapenos are cut up and your pickling solution is boiling, all you have to do is add those in. Just make sure the pickling solution completely covers them. Put your lid on and let them go ahead and boil for another 10 minutes. Once the pickling solution is boiling, you can reduce the heat. So we just have like a little bit of a simmer there. For filling the jars, you want one of these little canning kits where you get a funnel, a knife for getting out the bubbles, and it also has a magnet on the end for grabbing the jar lid, and then a jar grabber. For the canning lids, you just want to get this water hot, and then you can just keep it at a low flame just so that they stay warm. Once the jalapenos are ready and your jars are sanitized, take them right out of the hot water and add a half a teaspoon of pickle crisp to each jar. Put your lid in place. Note that I put the jars on this cutting board and not on my stone counter because the sudden temperature change for the hot jars, if they go on the stone counter, it could crack the jars. Start scooping these in. I want to fill these up until they're about a ½ inch from the top. So I just kind of pack these in there, and then I top off the jar with the pickling solution. Again, bringing it about a ½ inch from the top. The second jar is full of jalapenos, so I just add the pickling solution to bring it up and go on to the next jar. Oh, this is also the time when you want to add your garlic slices. I probably should have put them on the bottom. It doesn't really matter that much. They'll kind of get mixed up a little bit as these go into the canning pot. Once the jars are full, you want to take your knife, kind of stick it through, and that's to release any air bubbles that might be in between the jalapenos inside the jar. Just doing that, you might end up, getting a more headspace on here, and you might, at that point, you would have to add a little bit more of the pickling solution to bring the level back up. Like that's like on my back jar here. I need to bring that level back up just a little bit. There we go. Once the jars are full, you want to take a wet piece of paper towel and wipe the jar lids. So if there's any solution on there, you get it off. And it helps ensure that you have a good seal on the lids. And just grab one of the lids, put it on. Now these jars are hot. Just screw it on there finger tight. You don't need to crank it on there. And it's important that you don't get it too tight because otherwise what will happen is the air that's inside the jars won't be able to escape. And then you won't have a properly canned jalapeno. Once the lids are on, go ahead and put the jars back in the water. Once the jars are in the water, you want 1 inch of water above all the jars, and that's a safe level for canning. Now my pot here is just an 8-quart stock pot. It's nothing special, but it's big enough to hold 3 of these 1-pint jars. I do have a larger canning pot, which I can use, but for a small batch like this, this is perfect. Now that the water is boiling, I'll set my timer for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. You could skip the canning step completely and just put these right in the refrigerator. Once they've sat for 7 to 10 days, you can start using them, and they would last about 2 months. But by canning them, they become shelf stable for 12 to 18 months. Keep the jars up and down, don't tilt them over, and set them on either a cutting board or like 2 layers of towel. Again, if you have a stone countertop like I do, do not set these jars right on the stone countertop. A change in heat can break these jars. Now we just let those jars cool off, and as they cool off, the vacuum will be formed inside and you'll hear the jars pop. I hope you enjoyed coming along on my little jalapeno pickling adventure. If you've never canned anything before, pickling and canning jalapenos is a great starter step. They're very quick and easy, and it's almost, but not quite, impossible to screw it up. And really, it only takes like another 10 minutes to can them versus making the refrigerator version. And, you know, being shelf stable for 12 to 18 months, you know, what a great bonus that is. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Otherwise, until next time, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one.